Yeah, I'm not going to go into any specifics regarding the dimensions per se. It's all there. We've done it. The crates, in fact, you'll find that if you were intending to move any rhino in the Congo, in the Uganda, just nip across the border and grab a whole bunch of crates from Garamba, because there's a lot of crates still sitting there, perfect for white rhino. So it's often what happens is we take these rhino to a country like DRC, Garamba, and we find that it becomes too expensive to actually return the crates. So the crates are just left there, and they can be used for whatever. So just something to bear in mind. We've got these crates all over the place, and they've tried and tested. They work very well. So if I'm sure Willem will have something to add to it. But as I said, those are my comments.
Yeah, I think two things is if you move them in the crates or what, is the horn pressing and breaking off the horns. Maybe Dr. Dave can just comment on that, special precautions for that. And another thing is to have an opening on top of the crate so that you get access to the head. Maybe just comments on that.
Yeah, no, Willem's raised very pertinent points there. Obviously, you need to have access to the rhino, and where you want to have access is where you can, for instance, get to, number one, sometimes you need to get into an intravenous injection, which happens to be the ears is the logical place. And the other thing is, yes, the horns. We don't like traveling with rhino with big horns because of the leverage that they can produce on the end of the horns, and they break those horns, and when they break the horns, they break it off right at the base. There's a lot of blood involved. It doesn't look pretty at all. So normally what we would do is, if we've got a rhino with an excessive, what we consider to be too long a horn, we call it tipping, a section of the horn at the transport, but to prevent it from actually breaking the horn. A lot of the rhino have already had that done, simply because most of them, or a lot of them, have had horn implants put in, transmitters. And in order to put the transmitters, often the top of the horn is cut off flat. That is to facilitate drilling a vertical hole down, which takes the antenna of the transmitter that's embedded into the horn at the lower level. So it is a consideration, but it's something that we just do as a matter of course. And I mean, the ventilation aspects, the access aspects, and then obviously you've got to just be careful what's inside those crates in terms of things that can possibly cause injury to the animal. Any projections and things like that is just a no-no. It's got to be smooth. Whether the flooring should be I would just take an example from the crates that they've used at Garamba, and those things have proven themselves over time.
Reassurance that the animals are free of those diseases listed. Thanks.
If I can say, there's always a bit of controversy about the actual floor, because you can't stop the rhino from urinating, and if you've got a rubber rhino, the padding on the sides, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually quite nice. The rhino feel quite good when they're rubbing up against it and their heads and etc. As long as it's something that's not going to be too abrasive. But as far as the floors are concerned, to be quite honest, I'm kind of gone against any kind of rubberizing, except unless you've got those woven mats. The woven rubber mats seem to work really well, as long as they're fixed to the floor and they're not just piled loose on the floor, because the rhino with its feet and things like that, when they move, they actually start moving it and pushing it to the side, and it becomes a bit of a mess. And gets in the way. So it's neither here nor there, to be quite honest. I don't think it makes too much difference. But if a rhino, for instance, goes down in the crate, it's obviously, when I say down, it lies down on the side, for instance. It would prefer to have a bit of traction, one would imagine, to try and get up again. And that's where the woven mat that's actually fixed to the bottom of the crate will assist in that. But I think the crates that are sitting in Garamba at the moment, they've just got a sort of beaded floor, which just gives a little bit of traction without using any rubber.
Big offloading up. What we typically do, we're doing it next week. I think we're moving 100 odd rhinos next week. Is in each one of the sites we will have 100 by 100 meter offloading boma, where most of the animals can be offloaded together, and you ensure that the cows and the calves are together, and the animals that are used to walking together in their normal crashes can be released together. So I think it's quite important. Choice of the source animals is critical to the success of your actual relocation and as certainly as a founder population of animals.
Probably the easiest is just simply to release them into a small enclosed area so that they together, they can't miss each other. They get back together. They start. Sometimes the calf just starts suckling immediately, and then that bond is they reunited, and that bond is there, and then it's fine. You can open up, and this can just take 10 minutes. Usually we prefer to leave it a little bit longer, but you can see that bond has developed after just a couple of minutes. So yeah, it just needs to be managed properly, and that's not a problem.
Thanks, Dave. Kester, sorry, sometimes with Zoom the lines cross a bit and we miss each other. Anything that you would like to add onto it?
Covered most of it. The critical thing to understand is that they have to travel separately, otherwise the cows will injure the calves. But then equally, you need to put them in a holding boma. That's the most critical way. That's probably the most effective way. Put them in a temporary holding enclosure of a minimum size, and then that they can find each other. And then when you do a release, even if it is just half an hour later, that at least they're together. Because if you do a hot release, 50% of the time it's unsuccessful because they do not find each other. And obviously time is critical for suckling calves. So, and also out of choice, you would probably not want to take them. I mean, we've moved them up to sort of 36-hour journeys. You want to probably try and ideally keep it under 24 hours if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Then moving on to tracking devices. Horn implants, foot collars, where and when do you recommend in the process should this take place or not take place?
So, Johannes,
Kester, I'm just going to quickly intervene there. Just I'm not going to go into details. I'll leave it to you. But the bottom line is that I think they're very important. They're critical, and whatever method you use, it's your choice. But Kester has had this experience, and I'm going to hand over to him.
Go for it, Kester, please.
There's a host of different types of transmitters that you can use. Yes, can you hear me, Dave?
Yes, we've got you. Thanks, Kester.
All right. So there's a whole host of different transmitters. So it goes without saying that normal neck collars don't work on rhinos because they come off, which is why traditionally we've looked at different types of tracking devices. Typically, there's some that go into the horn, and then in the last 4 or 5 years, there've been systems designed that actually go on the front legs of the rhinos. Some of them are effective, others are not effective. So, and sorry, there are also a couple of new systems which get put in the ears. We haven't had great success with those at all because, similar to a horse, as soon as you put something in the ears, you end up with huge issues. There's a lot of work being done on it currently, but there's no like hugely effective ear tag that works well in rhinos currently, not to my knowledge. I know there's people working on one. So you're kind of limited to either horn transmitters, and there's different types of those too. A normal stock standard VHF horn transmitter, you get roughly 2 years worth of life on the ground, kilometer to 2 kilometers worth distance. You can track them, and from an aircraft up to 20 kilometers away. So they are really effective, but they have a life roughly 24 months. The foot collars, there's kind of mixed kind of reports. A normal standard VHF and satellite collars, we've actually seen lots of issues, especially with lesions on the legs. Generally, they've not been recommended. More recently, there's a very good system which has come out, which is a foot collar. It's based on having gateways. It's a satellite-based system, but you need to have a certain amount of gateways or have the gateway in an aircraft to be able to find them. And that system, which has got a really interesting AI system. So there's probably on at least 1,000 rhinos that I know of in South Africa. And I don't know if Dave will agree with me, but definitely the way to go for now. But but it's also about resources, what you have. It's quite expensive to put up a lot of gateways. So if it's for short-term monitoring, probably the best, most cost-effective way is just to put some VHF transmitters, and there's various brands, and you just put those in the horn, and they work really effectively.
Go for it.
I missed a little bit, but can you maybe just describe us the difference of offloading out of the crates of black rhino and white rhino?
I keep on saying, they definitely are two different species, and they certainly require different ways of handling. White rhino are pretty easy in terms of offloading. The black rhino, the way we're just standardly doing it now, and it depends on the circumstance. I mean, you can take black rhino, you can offload them into a boma with a bit of tranquilization, and that's fine. But if you're going to be doing a sort of hot release into the veld, then what we've found is the best way of doing it is to actually immobilize the animal while it's in the crate, just allow the drugs to take effect and let it walk out, go to sleep, and remove all sort of external equipment, etc., that's around the rhino, and let it go from there. And the results are 10 times better than just opening a crate box and letting it go. When I say 10 times better, these rhino, when they just let go like that, they go walkabout. They walk long distances, hitting fences, and then going to the next fence. They just seem totally disorientated. It's funny enough, the opposite seems to happen when they're allowed to wake up from immobilization. They often just get up and start feeding, and then explore the local environment around them, and sometimes stick in the same area for quite a couple of days before they actually start exploring. Unlike the rhino that just gets open, where the crates just get opened, and the rhino just gets let out and has to fend for himself. The white rhino, as I say, are definitely different animals in terms of the behavior, and I've got no, opening up a box and letting them out, they're still very relaxed, and they don't do what a black rhino does, and that's just go running like mad until it's the fence. Willem, I've answered some of your questions.
Sorry, do you take feces of these rhinos with and put it out so that they smell their own smell when they wake up? You do that
Absolutely.
as well?
Yes, absolutely. No, and it definitely makes a difference. Yeah, we try and do everything we can to, it's also interesting because that's exactly how you do cows and calves. You can take a cow and a calf and mobilize both of them and just let the calf wake up first. He nuzzles his mother, and then a minute later his mother gets up, and lo and behold, they make contact and just amble off, and the results have been amazing. So, and we've done lots of them, lots of releases like that. So, but as I say, there's a big difference between the white rhino and the black rhino, and I wouldn't be too concerned with the white rhino at all, except with the cow-calf combinations, as we mentioned earlier, is preferably move the cow and the calf into a boma area, a small enclosure. It doesn't have to be for long, until they've bonded nicely, and then you can open up and let them out.